Good afternoon, Soleiman. Did I get that right, by the way? Soleiman.
You did.
All right, cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We finally got this connected here. We between my travel and our schedules, whatever. But it's really a pleasure to have you on here. And I love what you do, and this is a real treat to be able to talk to you about, what your mission is out there, basically. And why don't we just start off with that? What is your mission in terms of what you're trying to accomplish, and what we're going to chat about here today?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me, Bill. Appreciate it
You
making
bet.
it work for both of us.
Right.
I'd say my mission in this moment in time is to support men in their transformation, and I'd say it's men to go internal more than anything, like letting go of the idea of the externalities of life that we always achieve and try to get to, and to find sort of peace and presence and joy within. So then the external, whatever happens, whatever you're creating, is just a bonus. And so right now, I'm in the process of creating a course that's around men, helping men find their purpose and direction in their life.
Okay. Why is that lacking? Why do men have such a hard time finding a purpose in life?
I think so. For me, the way that I describe purpose these days is that anything that fulfills you and leads you to where you want to go in life. It can be as simple as I want to do gardening. I want to do, I want to, change the world by creating, I don't know, the next automation of something or whatever it is that brings you sense of satisfaction and gets you somewhere. So I think the reason that we have a lot of men in today's society not feeling purpose driven is because we've taken this idea of purpose or impact and made it this big thing. Like, I need to make this big change and transform the world, and it has to make such a big impact to everybody's life. And I think people are stuck with like that idea. And so they get lost in trying to find that big thing. And instead of just taking a step towards what's the next thing that's going to bring me joy in this moment and moving towards that.
Yeah. Is it because they felt so many external pressures? They look around and they see other people who are, quote, successful, and they may not be successful, as we know. It's all based on perceptions on social media or whatnot. But is it because of those external pressures, or maybe it just comes from, hey, my dad bugged me when I was a teenager to do more with my life, or my spouse, or whatever, some sort of other pressure where men somehow feel inadequate.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. Well, I also, yes, I totally agree. It's definitely the idea. I think it's a lot of things, right? It's one of them is we have this idea that our partner wants that from us. So if you're in a heterosexual relationship, oh yeah, the woman wants me to be financially successful and I have to have drive and purpose, which is great. Yes, absolutely. We need drive and purpose in our life. Yet I think we succumb to the idea that oh, whatever it is that I need to do needs to be for her versus what do I want to do? What's my purpose and drive? And it's also what we see in social media. Absolutely right. Like, look at, I made all these millions. I made this much money. I made that much money. And it's like, can we step back a little bit from the idea of consistently seeing success with a dollar sign versus seeing success as am I gratified? Am I feeling joy? Am I happy with whatever it is that I'm doing versus does it equate to a certain dollar sign?
Yeah, and certainly there's that perception that success is related to the size of your bank account, the car you drive, the house you live in, the vacations you take, et
Right.
cetera, et cetera. And if you set that as such a high bar, I've always said there's never a time in my life when things are all going perfectly. I mean, for me, it's like, do I have a good relationship? Do I have money? Am I running healthy? There's always one of those three that's screwed up all the time. It's just the way it is.
Totally.
And if I set my
Yeah.
bar so high that like I'm not going to be happy unless all three of those things are perfect at any given moment, well, I'm going to be just chronically miserable then.
Absolutely. Yeah. If success is making sure that you've hit all those three every single moment and every single day, you're right. I don't think that that level of satisfaction is not that it's not possible, that it equates to a good life. I think a good life is knowing how to move through life with the different iterations and the different cycles, whether it's your health in one moment, whether it's, oh man, I had an opportunity and it wasn't successful and I lost it. So, wow, I failed at something. Now, moving through that. So, relationship problems, like whatever it is that you're moving through, are you able to move through them with ease and learning and growth versus, oh, I'm a failure because of XYZ. And yeah, so I think that's for me, that's the thing that I want to really share and teach the men is failure. You're not a failure. The thing failed, right? Recognizing and seeing that whatever project you were doing failed and finding the opportunity within that and knowing that the next cycle of whatever it is that you're doing can change and make you a better person, transform your life, make your life a better, um, make your life better in any situation.
Yeah, no, that's a great valuable lesson. In fact, as you said that, I started thinking, I'm not trying to turn it towards myself here so much, but it's exactly what I've been thinking here. I ran the Leadville Trail 100 this summer. Basically devoted all my time. It was like a full-time job training for it, and the race didn't go the way I hoped. And I have
Yeah.
had just such a struggle thinking like, well, am I an ultramarathoner? I mean, do I really belong in this community here, so to speak? I mean, what should I do next? Maybe should I just focus on running, a 5K, 10K race, whatever. Yeah, it's and yeah, that is I obviously I know I should not tie my whole self-worth, self-being, if you would, into like, hey, I'm an ultramarathoner, but suddenly because I failed in this one race, at least in my mind, people say, that's fantastic how far you ran. To me, it was a failure, but I shouldn't tie everything into that.
Right. It's what you're referring to. I call it the imposter syndrome. Like, well, I didn't succeed in this area. Oh, then I must be an imposter. Or me being a coach, like, oh, I coached somebody, but I didn't really coach them well. Oh, I can't coach. I'm an imposter. Like I shouldn't be coaching. And so it's no, it's what is it that I'm assuming that what you did brought you joy. You wanted to do it. You were curious and it
Yeah,
brought you satisfaction. Am I correct? Yeah.
absolutely.
That's it. It doesn't, the result, we got to let go. And that's the other thing. I think we got to let go of what the outcome and the result is. Yes, we can have all the goals, all the vision, all the desire for a certain outcome and let go of that and just be on the journey of like, cool, what's going to happen? And it seems like this time it wasn't as quote unquote successful as you thought it would be in your eyes. But it seems like other people were like, oh my God, amazing. Kudos to you, what you did.
Yeah. And my attitude is like, sure, I got that far, but I wasn't here for a participation ribbon. But but yeah, no,
Right.
yeah, the summer was great. I mean, I had such a good time up in the mountains running trails and whatever. I mean, the journey, as they say, was fantastic. It's just it didn't lead to the result I wanted. And then um, it's not like I had a backup right after that. I always recommend athletes I coach have a backup. It's like, okay, if that race didn't work out, then maybe a month later you do race XYZ. And
Yeah.
because I didn't have time to plan for another race, I had other things going on. So yeah, I've just kind of been in this malaise, if you would, of haven't gotten out of that rut yet.
Totally. I totally get it. What
Yeah.
is it? Can I ask you out of curiosity? Like, what is it? Because I think this goes a long way for not just men, but just all of us in terms of like, what are you gaining from the opportunity of the malaise? What are you learning from it? Because there's a gift, it's a gift, right?
Huh. That's an interesting way to look at it. Do I see it as a gift? I don't know. Because to me, it's like I go out and run now, and I almost feel like a beginner all over again. It's like, man, I'm just like stuck. If somebody said go out and run 20 miles right now, I'd probably say, would you mind if I just maybe ran 10 miles instead?
Yeah,
Even though I was trained to run 100 miles, it's like I just don't even feel like I could do 20 miles right now. So, yeah, I'm not sure what the opportunity was in the malaise, so to speak. What do you think?
yeah. Thanks for, yeah. So I would say whenever I'm in um, I call it woes me, right? Like, oh, I didn't hit the mark or the thing that I wanted to. it's a recalibration. It's actually me going internal, right? And speaking to my self-talk of, great, what was it about the race? Like, what expectations did I have of myself? Because at the end of the day, it's expectations that weren't hit.
Right.
And to look at myself, it's all about going in again, right? Going inward and being like, what parts of me are flared up, are starting to put myself down? What's the self-talk? What's the limiting beliefs that are coming up? And so it's a great place to then be able to then look at those and bolster myself to be like, great, I see these points. I'm putting myself down in XYZ. Great. What kind of limiting beliefs can I let go? And what affirmations can I bring in to set myself up for success the next time? So that's how I see a sort of, I call it the valley, right? Going into a
Yeah.
valley of like, oh, it was me. Oh, boo boo. Oh,
Right,
you
right.
messed up. It's okay. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, and we talk all the time in this podcast about limiting beliefs, whether it's, can I do that race? Can I write this book? Can I start a new business? Whatever it is. And, and then there's a million podcasts out there also that talk about, how to not limit your self-belief. Um, yeah, and it really is a little bit of an imposter syndrome where it's like, God, do I belong here? It's like, and like I've done other things this year even. I mean, I went to Chile in March and climbed a mountain up to almost 20,000 feet and
Wow.
way, way higher than I've ever been before. And, I had this belief that like, yeah, I'm not trained for this, but I'm gonna just go do it. And I did, and everybody on the trip we were with, we all did. And it kind of showed, don't have a limiting belief. And yet here I am also like, geez, one failure and already I can't do this kind of thing.
Right. Totally. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I did about 6 years ago, I did Machu Picchu.
Oh, nice. Yep. I've been there myself. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how high. Do you know how high that is? How high is that?
It's not super high. I'm trying to remember what the elevation was
Yeah.
there. Um, because it's
Yeah. I
jungle
mean,
still. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, for us, we were novice, we were there on vacation. So there's a whole bunch of us. And going up there, it was brutal. It was like, all right, every like 20 minutes, like, we need a break. And it took us like, I think it took us like 3 or 4 hours. So it was definitely a climb. Yeah, for
Oh,
us.
wow. Yeah, you're going to hate this then because I made it a challenge to see how quickly I could get up there. So
Yeah.
at the gate of the sunrise, whatever they call that gate there that opens at 5 a.m.
Uh-huh.
and it's in the dark. And so I made it a point to get ahead of everybody so I could race up those steps and made it up in 40 some odd minutes. And yeah, just like I say, just had to get ahead of the crowd to do that. And those steps are kind of crazy because they're tiny. And then subsequent to that, we actually went and climbed up that Mount Machu Picchu that's right adjacent,
Uh-huh.
which that was cool as hell, being way up there and looking down on Machu Picchu from way up above.
Wow. Cool. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, but
Wow.
that is that's a climb though. You're right. But yeah, I don't know what the elevation is there. Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'd say I have this magic device. I could look it up, but it's really not relevant to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, totally. No worries. Yeah.
Right. No, but that was an accomplishment there for you, huh?
Absolutely. And it was one of those, it wasn't like I want to climb Machu Picchu in a sense of I'm not a climber, I'm not a runner, it's not my thing, but we were in Machu Picchu. There was a trip that was part of the group we were with, and going to Machu Picchu was part of it. And so it was an option. We could stay on the sort of like base and just see what's happening, sort of understand about how they grew, the Mayans grew everything and how they had water stuff. But it was part of the tour, like, hey, do you guys want to pick one of the mountains and just go climb it? And we're like, sure. And so doing it actually and reaching the heights in just complete sweat and just being drenched and then getting up there, it was a very, very powerful feeling of accomplishment for sure. And I think
Yeah.
that's what I think a lot of, I don't think it's just men. I can't just say that this is a thing for just men, but I think the idea of accomplishment, consistent accomplishment is what we strive for. And I think that's what maybe gets us a lot of times in trouble. I'd say, especially, I'll focus on men in a sense of where we'll do an accomplishment and then we'll have sort of like a life that's in some ways slightly, I want to use the word mundane. That's just the basic day-to-day life stuff.
Yeah.
And then they want to find something else to accomplish. And I think what happens is if you're not in a space of celebrating that accomplishment first and foremost, like really patting yourself on the back and acknowledging that you did that before right away being like, okay, what's next? We're losing sight of just the journey because we're then chasing. It's a matter of like, great, next accomplishments, next accomplishment, let me chase. Do you see that as well in terms of a lot of men doing that?
Yeah, especially in the high achiever realm, a lot of the people who are guests, for instance, on this podcast are, they're ultra marathon champions, winners, record holders, FKT setters. Those are the people who set fastest known times on, climbing up and down mountains and such. Um, yeah, it's almost an addictive nature that you've got to be able to move on from one to the next. And I think that's why ultra marathoning in particular appeals to a lot of people in the recovery world. People are, they've given up their
Oh,
addiction and they get into ultra marathoning. And it's like somebody who's been, injecting drugs. It's like if you had a high one time, well, is just getting high the next time enough? No, generally you want to get even higher. And
right.
same thing happens in the ultra marathon world. It's like, okay, well, yeah, running a marathon was pretty cool, but maybe I can run 100 miles. Maybe I can run for 200 miles. It's now become a big thing. And then you have multi-day races and so on and so on.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that something you see yourself as well in terms of like aspiring to do something? Once you do something, you're like, let me try and hit some other goal, or
No.
like instead of 100 miles, you'll do 200 miles.
Yeah, no, I have no desire to do 200 miles. It
Okay.
tells me that's become a thing because once you get beyond 100, now you're talking about now you got to incorporate sleep into your into the race. You can't just do 200 miles without taking it. And that just to me is like an impossibility there. Maybe that's my self-limiting belief, but I'm a terrible sleeper and I can't imagine having to sleep during a race. It just
Yeah.
so no, that one doesn't have any appeal to me. And there's certain limits, like running the Badwater 135, the 135-mile race in Death Valley in the middle of the summer. No
Yeah.
appeal. I'm not interested
Yeah.
in that. I mean, there's certain other kinds of challenges I'd be interested in. I mean, like say the Leadville 100 is a very tough 100-mile race up here in Colorado at high altitude.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, but I'd be interested in other similar kinds of races or other, types of challenges. But no, I'm not going to get into the 200 miles or the bad waters of the world.
Got it. Cool.
But yeah, no, I could definitely see that though with most men in that, um, there is a fight against that mundane world. Sometimes just coming home, bringing home a paycheck, sometimes isn't enough. And
Right.
taking care of your family and all. And maybe there should be a little more pride in actually taking care of business, so to speak.
I agree. There's something I think we um there yeah, I agree in terms of being a father or a parent or just in partnership, finding the beauty just that in and of itself instead of the idea that we've grown to that um, the partnership needs so much more like financial, like 10 houses and we need to fly first class, and it needs like this idea of what it should look like
Right.
versus just the basics of, wow, you've got a partner, like you've got a person there that you can lean on, like you have companionship. You have, if you have kids, let's say, like, wow, you have a kid that looks up to you, like, and I really owe that to my sister. Like, she's a great mom, and she has two kids, and the way that she's raised them, I really am just profound. Like, I'm so happy to have seen how she has raised her kids in terms of the way that she interacts with them. And she's, a lot of her sons, like friends, say like, you're the coolest mom we know. Like, we can share things with you that we can't share in front of our parents. And it just goes to show like her sense of being really caring and a mom who's yeah. So I'm going into motherhood, but it's more about just being able to have knowing that it's okay if you're the thing that you have in connection is partnership and not this idea of all the big things that you need to have to be successful in life at the end of the day.
Yeah, very true. I mean, there are a lot of people who choose to be, let's say accountants or, hey, I don't want to pick on one profession, but something that most people think, oh, that's kind of boring. But at the same time, is they're being providers, and they're performing an important service as well. It's not like, the world can live without accountants or anything like that. I mean, I was always, when I had my own businesses, I always was very thankful for my accountant because they would do the stuff I didn't want to do. But yeah, there is a certain amount of value in being able to perform a role like that. You don't accountants can certainly wear Superman costumes just as much as somebody who has hit the game-winning home run in the World Series, you know?
Absolutely. Totally agree. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I ditto your comment. I appreciate my CPA so much. Like the way that he loves numbers and can run numbers. I'm like, wow, like kudos to you. Like I cannot, yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, we need those things. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
But you've gotten into working though with men who are coming from all walks. I imagine there's some who are the accountants of the world and some who are, maybe the guys scoring touchdowns for their college teams or whatever. But at some point, they're feeling a need to, basically find some more purpose in their life. And whatever reason, they're not satisfied with where they are. They're in a rut or whatever it is. So somehow you've been able to intervene in that process and create groups and courses and other things that to help men out. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your work there?
Yeah, I think the main theme that I've noticed in putting on whether it's men's groups or putting on men's trainings or workshops is that a lot of the men they're lacking the so I'd say emotional intelligence and the sense of feeling their body, like being able to tune in and not be so logical in their head and to tune into their body. That's the theme that I consistently get where whether they're in even the men that are in sports. So there was actually a group thing that I did several months ago back in May, and there was one man who was corporate guy, and then one guy who was grew up in sports and is definitely still into sports, but he's now a corporate guy. And both of them had like I'm constantly thinking, I'm constantly in my mind, and so the practice was always bringing them into their body, so then they can make choices from their intuitive self, from their feeling self, and not so much from their mind, which is a big deal for these guys because they've given so much kudos to their intelligence, where our body, our intuition has so much intelligence as well, like our feeling. And so throughout the journey, it was just beautiful to see at the end of the journey with them that one of them was like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize how much my body was telling me to slow down, to take deep breaths, to wind down. And now that I'm doing it, I feel so much more calmer in conversations with my boss or people. I'm noticing myself being a lot less reactive to certain things. So it's a big deal for a lot of these guys to actually realize that they can tune in and slow down. It's such a big deal. So, yeah.
Yeah, and how do they slow down? Because I think back even when when I first started out as a high school basketball coach. Um,
Huh.
I was one of those emotional coaches, and I probably making an ass of myself half the time. Although I never got a technical foul, I could never figure that out. I even tried one time and couldn't. But somebody showed me a picture of myself when I was like screaming at a ref, and I was so embarrassed by the way I looked that I really kind of stepped back and said, you know what, I'm not setting a good example for the kids here, and I'm not accomplishing anything either.
Yeah.
But in a lot of situations now, I find that I'm just a lot calmer. I'm able to kind of step back um, and that's what you do in ultra marathoning, for instance. I mean, when you run an ultra marathon, something will always go wrong. And sometimes you plan for it, sometimes
Yeah.
you. You can't control certain things like the weather, or maybe all of a sudden the sole fell off your shoe. Just an extreme example, just like I didn't plan on that, couldn't have planned on that. So
Yeah,
but you are a problem solver on the run. You learn how to just step back, and instead of making like, oh my God, I can't run anymore, it's you figure it out, you know.
totally.
That's what I love about traveling is something always screws up when you're traveling. The airline could lose your bags, the hotel doesn't have your reservation, whatever it is, and it's like, all right, fine, I'll figure it out. So, I mean, how is it,
Yeah.
you get men to kind of go from point A to point B, where, once they were very wound up about something to the point where they could make a rational decision, and maybe that is thinking, using your body instead of your brain.
Yeah, I think it's so I'd say it's obviously it's practice, right? But I think that the basis of it is breath, sound, movement, presence. So breath, right? Really allowing themselves to tune into their breath every day. Instead of it, if they get a moment to check in on their breath, are they breathing really heavily, or are they not actually focused and conscious about how they're breathing? So that's the number one, breath. The second one would be sound, like really noticing, like, how am I expressing myself? Like, am I, when I'm speaking or if I'm talking, am I really talking really quietly, or am I talking really loudly and interrupting, or like really noticing the level of expression that's coming out of your vocal cords? Like, is it truly coming from a place of balance and sound where you really want to authentically share yourself? And the sound can become very different. Like you've noticed, I'm sure you've noticed, if not consciously, but unconsciously, when you're speaking to someone, all of a sudden they'll talking and then they'll be like, or, like that's just a place of noticing where they're coming from, right?
Yeah.
So breath, sound, movement is the third one, or the third one, which is movement. It's how are we moving throughout our day to day? Are we constantly sitting? Are we constantly standing? Are we not moving our shoulders? Are we not allowing our body to stretch? That's very important, especially throughout your day for someone that's sitting at a desk all day. It's important to move the body, especially your hips, where we hold a lot of tension and I'd say a lot of sexual energy, which is your creative energy. And then finally, presence. So if I'm in conversation with someone, am I constantly in my thought, or am I really truly present with this person with my whole entire being, where I'm completely engaged with them, whether it's eye contact or not? It's more about, can my beingness really be with this person? And so as I took them through their journey, when teaching them the breath, sound, movement, presence, every week I would do an exercise every single call to tune them into you know, reaffirming the idea of breath, sound, movement, presence. And so the exercises kept building on each other until the pretty much the final module, where they could totally, like during the call, they'd just right away, when they were on the call, they'd just drop in right away. They'd be completely present.
Hmm.
They could notice their breath, like they were taking deeper breaths. They were regulating, they were literally starting to regulate themselves as a practice. And so I think it's just noticing throughout your day to day to then get to a point where you're like, wow, I'm actually a lot more easeful and relaxed, and I'm no longer reacting, right? Yeah, I think that's I'd say the basis of part of what I teach.
Yeah, and obviously you can react in a more rational, probably more focused manner. As we all know, making emotional decisions can be pretty rash. You can do a lot of things that you regret later on. So, yeah, so I'm sure that helps a lot. So, if you wouldn't mind, just step through each one of those stages you mentioned there real briefly. Like, what does one do to suddenly become more cognizant of their breath? I mean, is it something, again, you do exercises where you introduce a stressful situation and teach them to control their breath during what is perceived to be going on? How does that work?
Yeah, so I have them think of a situation in their life, like whether it's work, partnership, friend, family, whatever it is, to bring that to awareness, right?
Yeah.
And the mind doesn't know the difference between reality or unreality, right? So the minute that they start thinking about it, they can tell that their body is starting to shift. So once their body starts to shift, I tell them, great. So notice the situation, notice your breath. Now bring your awareness to your breath while still holding that idea of whatever situation you're in. So they'll then take an inhale through their nose and then exhale through their mouth. And it's about doing the inhale and exhale very slowly, right? Very consciously. So as they do that, what happens is the idea that they had about that situation, their body starts to calm down. And so the thought of whatever situation they had starts to dissipate. So they no longer see that situation as an angst. They start to see it as, oh, wow, okay, that was a situation. I can now, next time, know how to regulate my breath so that the next time I'm not so hypervigilant or so anxious or whatever degree or whatever they're feeling, right? Angry, upset, so they can regulate themselves. So that's with breath. It's all about the inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. So,
Yeah.
so go ahead. You had more there?
Yeah. So the next one, so sound is all about, so what I did in one of the exercises was having them tone and noticing, so they would inhale and then exhale and actually say out loud, and then I would have them notice, are they holding back the or is it a true sound? And you can, like, when I did it right now, it was holding it back because I don't want to like have people like hear me screaming into their ear. But it's I had them mute and then unmute one at a time, and I was like, really allow your tone to come out, and they could notice, like, are they holding themselves back or are they exerting too much? And you want to be right in between where it's just a natural, like, you're not holding, you're not exerting, it's just a natural sigh of sound coming out. That's when you know you're in a sweet spot where your true expression is coming out. So
Hmm.
that's with sound. It's just practicing, making sure that you're inhaling and you're exhaling, and it's truly like an ah. And then we also would do oming. Oming is a really good practice as well, to inhale and om and allow your om to truly be the om that you want to express, and notice, are you holding back or are you truly in a space of, if it's true, yeah, balance, basically.
Right. Okay.
So
When
that
you say,
sound,
so
go
you
ahead.
oming though,
Thank you.
it
Yeah.
is just like, kind of what we always, see sometimes even parodied, like somebody sitting there very calm going, Om. Is that kind of
Right.
what you're talking about there? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's all. So that's breath, sound. So now with movement. So with movement, the idea behind movement in your body is, are you, again, it's about how are you feeling? Like, are you stiff? Are you relaxed? Like, the practice would always be, create, notice yourself sitting on your chair. Now, if you were to get one micrometer or whatever, even more relaxed on your chair that you're sitting on, what would you need to do? And then you'd sort of see some of the guys like do this, like move their shoulder or like lean, like, stretch a little bit, whatever it is. It's just noticing. Again, how am I sitting in a chair in a moment? Like, it could, some of the guys were like, well, I actually need to get up and stretch.
Yeah.
So it's making sure that in any given moment, your body is in a position that's so comfortable that you're able to relax into sensations in your body. So at the end of the day, it's, can I feel more sensation in my body? So that's with movement, and then movement can also lead into, um, how are you holding yourself throughout the day? Are you scrunched up? Are you fully upright so you can breathe better?
Right.
Yeah, so that's movement. And then finally, presence. Presence. So they all three of those things lead to presence. So if you're in tune with your breath, you're in tune with your sound, and you're really in tune with how you're sitting, presence is a natural byproduct of those three, where then you can really be. present not only to yourself and your sensations throughout your body, but you can be in connection with somebody else where you can feel them, they can feel you, and you're in true resonance and connection with them.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
All right. And so this is all a process, though. I mean, do you go through these steps one by one, or is it kind of like you're learning a little bit of each one at it, and then it all kind of comes together at the end? I mean, how does the process work?
So I'd say with it's throughout so I did a 7 module program, and through the breath sound movement was one of the modules, but throughout it, like breath was brought into more. Like I taught more about breath. And then in another part of it, presence was brought more, and then movement was brought more. And so like, and then each one of those have different exercises. Like there's a movement exercise that I do in the program, and a presence ex. So each one of those have deeper layers that I go into that teaches them, oh wow, okay, this is what presence would look like on a more subtler level. And this is what presence or each one of them would look like on a deeper level. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
I gotcha. So,
Yeah.
what's the derivation of all this? Does this all come from Eastern philosophies, or is this something that you kind of came on, or how did all this kind of develop into this program that you've got?
Yeah. So my background is tantric studies, somatics, NLP, and psychology. And so, you know, Tantra was a lot about the body, energy, sexuality, and then bringing into it psychology and somatics was a lot about the body again, like tuning into your body. Like, what is your, how does the body speak? Like, what is the language of the body? Like, what does your body want to do?
Hmm,
And then NLP had a lot to do with great regulating your nervous system, and then noticing what comes up is what then you can take to support you in terms of emotional release or releasing limiting beliefs that are holding you back to then be the person that you really want to be.
gotcha. All
Yeah.
right. Um, okay, I learned something right away. It's Tantra. Okay. I, I'm from New York. I would have said Tantra, so that's a good little thing there.
Right.
Yeah. What all does Tantra
Yeah.
encompass?
Well, if you really want the say again.
No, what does Tantra encompass? Because it is a very broad definition there, right?
It is. And if we really want to use the correct word, the Eastern word, it's tantra, right? It's not the West. The West uses the word tantra now, um, but it's tantra. And then what is it? I mean, it's an esoteric teaching, and I'd say 10 or 15, 20% of it is sexualized, but in the West, we have sexualized tantra. So tantra is an esoteric teaching about it's a way of life, right? It's a way of life of seeing things as equal, like meaning they're good or bad is all, how do I say it? There's no such thing as good or bad. Everything is just is.
Right.
You live your life based on the choices that you make, regardless of if you think they're good or bad. So
Well,
and
it's very
then Tantra
un-American.
is also based on energy.
Yeah. No, you have to be willing,
Right.
right? One side's good, the other
Correct.
bad. No matter. No, I'm only kidding.
Or,
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. There is the idea of good and evil. I mean, it is very true. Like, that is a very Western philosophy of life, and um, right or wrong is a big theme in the Western and in the Eastern philosophy. There is it's only choices. It's only choices and experiences. And so a lot of the esoteric teachings are very non-sexualized, meaning like your experience is your connection with the divine, and you do that through experiences in life. And then the sexual components is which I've studied quite a lot as well, is all about embodiment, like sexual liberation, embodiment, sexual cultivation, sexual energy.
Right. All right. Very cool. Um,
Yeah.
I think eventually what this all leads to then is men becoming more productive and more mindful. Do I have that kind of right? Is that kind of the end goal here, with all the work that you have them do?
Absolutely. I would say I love that. Productive and mindful. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Productive in the sense, I want to use the word productive in the sense of whatever is fulfilling and productive to them. Like, I don't want productive in the sense of like, yeah, productive in the sense of like whatever they're doing in their day-to-day life is bringing them joy and fulfillment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, to me, I think some of my happiest days are the ones where I get a lot of work done around the house that I've been, had all planned out, and the only way I can get it all done is if I'm productive. So I think there's a certain amount of, self appreciation there for when you are productive, and yeah, it could be in the office, could be just doing home projects. Who knows?
Totally. Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, your practice, who are kind of your candidates, if you would? I mean, who are the folks who come to you saying, "Yeah, I need to make some changes here." I mean, are they people who have real bad issues, or is it just people looking to kind of tweak things a little bit, or who generally comes to you to engage with your courses, your coaching, etc.?
Yeah, I'd say it's the guy who they've done they've done some personal growth. There's slightly they're tuned into they know their emotions. Like they've tapped into, oh yeah, okay, I have emotions. Like I can cry. Like they're not the newbie who hasn't connected to their emotions. It's the person that's had some iteration and knowledge about their emotions. They can feel, they can connect to their emotional body. And then it's the guy who they can have had success or no success. It doesn't really matter, but they're in a place in their life where they're like, is this it? Is this what
Right.
life's about?
Yeah.
And they're like questioning like the overall fundamental of what life is about, and they're questioning there should be more. It can't be just this. And so they're seeking it outside of themselves. And I really want to help men. It's inside. It has nothing to do with outside. Yes, you can go after all the things externally, thinking that it's going to get you the success and the result. At the end of the day, if within yourself you're not feeling the sense of rootedness, groundedness, self-reliance, the external world isn't going to make you happy. So, yeah, so I'd say it's that guy who's like questioning life and being like, wait, there's got to be more.
Yeah. What about that guy? Just as an aside, that guy who's totally non-tuned into his emotions is, at all. I mean, is there any way to get him to start plugging in, or is that something that somebody has to really kind of develop on their own before they can really step into your world, so to speak?
Yeah, I would say they would need to have some sort of wake up for themselves.
Okay.
I'd say um, whether it's a quote unquote divorce, health problems, financial problems, something in their life needs to all of a sudden, or they all of a sudden are like, well, I don't like what's happening. Like they realize it somehow themselves, and then they start investigating whether it's therapy or yoga or some sort of coaching modality for themselves. Something needs to happen in their life for them to wake up to the idea that there's something out there. The person, like, it's really hard. It's the best example that I always give people. It's the guy that's the smoker, right?
Right.
No matter how many times, like I used to smoke, no matter how many times people were telling me, dude, you smoke? I'm like, yeah. They're like, why? I'm like, I don't know. They're like, why don't you stop? I'm like, I don't want to. Until the day that I realized that it was time for me to stop. So that's the same thing with the person that no matter how many times I can tell them the person, wow, you don't feel your emotions, like why don't you start learning about it? If they don't have a direct experience and a desire to do that, there's no point in me constantly telling them. So that's why I don't want to work with those men because they got to be ready. That's with all of us, right? We got to be ready for the thing that we want.
Oh,
And
that's true. Whether you're talking about the addict or the person who's obese, I mean, generally they get
right,
to the point where they put their foot down and say, "That's it. I got to do something about this."
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
those are the men that are fun to work with because they're curious. They want the work instead of me or anybody who's coaching them needing to push them along the way. I don't want to push anybody. I really don't. I'm not interested in pushing someone. Yeah.
No, no, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, yeah, again, it's like trying to get that person to quit smoking cigarettes. If they're not willing, then you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, the man who has had a little bit of a awakening, so to speak, and comes to you, then how do you generally start them off with this process?
So my course, basically, the way that it's outlined is the first part is basically building a new foundation, right? So when they and the building the new foundation is basically releasing emotions that are sort of baggage, like any stagnant emotions. Like if they have a lot of anger and they haven't been able to express it, expressing that anger, releasing sadness. So anything that's holding them back and emotion, releasing any emotions. The next step is limiting beliefs. Like what are the ideas and themes that keep coming up in your life about yourself? Noticing those and writing those down, and then having a counter affirmation that you can continuously repeat so you can tap into the opposing, so creating a new belief basically, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first foundation. If you don't have a good clear foundation, excuse me, give me 1 second.
Yep.
Excuse me. If
It's
you
all
don't
good.
have a clear foundation, then you're basing yourself on, yeah, it's basically you're not building on something that's sound. So that'd be the first step. Once they've sort of cleared some things away, they get a better understanding of who they are and their potentiality. So then they can create a vision for themselves. And that vision or purpose or direction can be anything, whether it's health, wealth, or simply like, oh, I've been wanting to create a garden bed. Great. Like it can be as mundane and simple and basic, or I want to start a podcast, or whatever it is, it's putting that um, as a vision in front of you.
Yeah.
1 sec. Wow. I'm getting excited and coughing about this.
All right. Don't die on me here.
So then from there, once they've created that vision, then it's all about execution. And it's about how do you take action steps toward that vision. And it's basically you just break it down. Um, Usually, and it depends on the vision, right? Some could be a couple of months, some it could take over a year. So it depends on what your vision is.
Yeah.
And then the final step, the fourth step is um, seeing what areas of your life need to shift or change, like maybe setting boundaries. Maybe it's needing to um, change where you live. Like there's a lot of things that we have in our life where the thing that we want, we won't actually meet it there. So certain things need to change. Like maybe you need to say no to a lot of your friends. Maybe you got to stop going to bars and stop
Right.
drinking. Like whatever it is setting those boundaries to hit your goal and be successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So shouldn't there then be a fifth step of, once you've identified what needs to change is how you're going to change that, right? Or is that the
Well,
execution piece?
that's that's part of the execution piece.
Okay.
Because when you start executing certain things, you start looking at your life and seeing, wait, this does not fit part of my vision anymore. Like the way that I used to be, the way that I used to live my life. So then that part of the second part is reevaluating how they've been living their life.
Right. Yeah, no, I certainly think I think about young people who are constantly scrolling on their phones. And yeah, it serves a purpose that, at some age, but it's definitely getting in the way of you accomplishing maybe some other things you need to do, whether it's your homework or your working out or your job, whatever it is. Yeah, at some point you've got to say, yeah, that served a purpose, but this has got to be shoved aside here now so I can actually get on with my life here.
Absolutely. Agree.
Yeah, good. Yeah. So you have various methods though. I mean, you've got, your individual coaching, you've got your groups, I think seminars, things like that. I mean, run us through the various avenues that men can find to work with you that actually will lead them towards your to the end goal.
Yeah, so I have my course, which is called Rise. I'm in the process of working on that right now as we speak. It's in process. I plan to launch that in the next couple of months. I'm thinking it'll be beginning of 2025. So I
Okay.
have my course, and within that course, I'm going to do a cohort of no more than 12 men per cohort. And it's going to be 3 month program where each week it'll be a 2 hour sort of men's group style call where you'll go through the course at your own pace. And the call will be all about each man going around sort of taking some time to share about what they're going through. And then the group think helping them out. And then me obviously helping the men understand what it's like to be in a men's group. Because I think I have been in a men's group for so long that the group container is so powerful. So I want more and more men to realize what men's group feels like and how they can be supported in it. So then they can go and either create their own men's group or take this cohort and stick with each other and continue it.
Yeah.
So that's one. So it's the course, it's the men's group, and then I'm creating a community called a men's community called Inner Edge, and it's all about sessions where each man. So it's sessions where I'm basically offering different sessions that I've learned from in terms of breath work or um, tapping, hypnotherapy, embodiment exercises. And so throughout each week, there's going to be a whole bunch of different facilitators who are going to offer different sessions.
Oh,
And that's
cool.
going to be part of the community membership. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, very nice. How do you get interested in being in a group? I mean, I know of some, and it seems to be growing right now, but certainly, I think most men are thinking, "Oh no, I'm not." That's a female thing. Or anytime I think of groups, I always go back to the old Bob Newhart show. I don't know if you're old enough to remember watching Bob
Uh,
Newhart and his bunch of crazies he used to have in his psychological group. It was part of the shtick of the show. It was great. But most of us would look at that and go, "Yeah, okay, that's a bunch of crazies here. That's not for me." And or again, well, that's something women want to go sit around with other women and share their emotions or whatever. Like, what's the key to success to making a men's group fly?
so yeah, I've actually created a manual for that. So the key components are no more than 12 men. So anywhere from 8 to 12 men, so that each man um, can have some talk time. And then throughout the week in a men's group, it's not about each man getting work done. It's about can you be there to provide support and potentially receive support. So that's the key to know that when you go into a container, and usually it's a minimum of 2 hours. If you're in a 2 hour container, you're not going in there with the expectation of, oh, I get to share and somebody gets to support me. I'm going in there to be with a group of men to support or be supported. And so that's the main thing. And then I'd say there's 3 rounds to every evening. The first round is sort of a 1 to 2 minute share of how has your week been? What's the most juicy nugget, whether positive or negative, that's going on in your life, right?
Right,
The second sort of round is all about going deeper. So a man, if somebody has shared something that's really like it hits me, I can be like, hey, do you want to, do you want to say more about that, whether positive or negative in your life? So they'll go deeper into that, and then they can ask for reflection from the men, and we can support that man to whether do something or coach him along the way by asking questions so he can come to his own answer of what it is that he needs to improve in his life.
gotcha.
And then the third round, which is like 5 or 10 minutes before we close, It's usually a closing round as to gratitude, what we're leaving with, and if you have any things that you're doing, like if you got some like action items, like what are you doing for this week? Um, in our group, we've also added buddies. So throughout the week, we have a buddy that we check in with to say, hey, what's going on in your week? What are you up to?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that add to the value?
I think what happens is if you join a men's group, so there's two things that we do. That's one of them, and the other thing we do is outings. If you're in an so my men's group, we're all based in San Diego, so it allows for us to be able to also do outings. But if you're an online based, I mean, it's definitely going to make it challenging. But I think those two components add to the connection and building intimacy, building understanding of one another versus just meeting once a week and then not having any connection. It builds to what is going on in this person's life and actually caring and actually building a friendship and a relationship that's beyond just, oh, I meet you once a week and I support you.
Right.
So I'd say that's the big deal in terms of buddy system.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer that movement is valuable to creating a stronger bond. You know, whether it's you guys go out to run together, maybe you go play basketball together, maybe you go volunteer together. You know, whatever it is, it's you go to a ball game. I don't know, something that at least is active as opposed to, yeah, just all sitting around over coffee. And you know, I think it's real easy after you have coffee with somebody, you walk away and say, okay, well, there's nothing to say. What's the next step here? Whereas, you know, I think when you have that movement involved, you find those avenues where it's like, hey, that was a good run. You know, we should go run over here next. Or, hey, you know, it was a great hockey game. Let's go catch that basketball game. You know, whatever it is. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's building that bond and it takes time to build a bond. So the more um, inferences or hits or connecting points you can create, the not quicker, but the deeper the bond can go. Yeah, I'd say quicker actually, sooner, quicker. Yeah,
You bet. And deeper.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I noticed when I got on your website, your what you have there's actually very reasonably priced. You know, I think a lot of people fear personal coaching is like, oh my God, if I sign up for this, this is going to cost me thousands of dollars, and my net gain is probably not. You know, there's what would you, yeah, net gain, I guess, is not. There's not going to be a payoff there, I guess. Whereas I could definitely see for a pretty minimal investment in terms of money, I mean, certainly there's always time and you know, everything takes time.
yeah.
There is a pretty good payout here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've wanted to make this reasonable. I mean, I've spent myself personally thousands of dollars for coaches, programs, coaches. I've probably spent over $500,000. Yeah, $500,000 probably in the past 10 to 15 years on personal growth myself, maybe even more. But it's been worth every single penny.
Yeah.
And I think the group dynamic is best served for people. That's why I've made it reasonable. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. And my one-on-one coaching as well. I only am wanting to take two clients when it comes to coaching one-on-one. My goal is more about building the community, the men's community. I think that's more valuable for people, the men's community and um, the course.
Yeah. No, we look even in the running community. It's like if I were to take on too many running clients, am I really doing them the best service there? Because you know, it takes a certain amount of time every week, you know, in designing plans and communications and whatnot. So, yeah, there's only so much you can do efficiently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, what have we missed here? We've covered some ground here, and I don't want to take your whole day, but this is really awesome. But what topics have we missed here?
Good question. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Let's see. What have we missed here? Yeah, I'd say this is um, how do I say this? It's something that I'm doing. It's more of a long game, I would say.
Right?
I've done a lot of things in my life where they've been, let me, like, how can I make this successful right away? Let me push, push, push to make this successful. And they've pretty much failed because
The
I was in such a hurry for it to get somewhere.
right.
What?
No, the
Yeah,
American instant gratification syndrome, right?
totally.
Yeah.
And so I've been in a real and a deep, deep dive since June of like just day by day. Like even if this course, like I did say that I want to launch this course like sometime early next year. I'm also willing for it to be later. Like I'm not in a rush for whether I have coaching clients or whether I'm, in my men's group is like I'm not interested in rushing. So, and I think this goes a long way to share for other men. Like take your time in creating something. Like don't look at the don't and this is what I've been preaching myself, so I'm going to preach it to other fellas. Like don't rush to getting something out there. Like allow it to build, allow it to boil, allow it to like really have growth and look at it as a long term as to whatever it is that you're creating. So basically just saying that I'm taking my time in creating this, and yeah, whenever it comes out it'll be beautiful. So
Yeah. Measure twice, cut once, right?
nice. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, the
Yes,
old handyman
absolutely.
adage there, right? Well, that's cool. Well, cool. Well, where can people find you out there and find out about these programs, et cetera?
Yeah, so my website, Soleiman, that's Soleiman, B as in boy.com. Yeah, it's my website. You can find all the info about my program and the men's community there.
Okay,
Um, or they can email me info@soleimanb.com.
gotcha. And then are you out
Yeah.
there on social media?
Oh yeah, Soleiman, Soleiman, Bolour, B as in boy, Olour is my social media on Instagram. And I think, yeah, Instagram is that, and so is Facebook. Um, I'm on TikTok, but I have a TikTok, but I'm not really active on TikTok. It's not my foray yet.
No, I mean, for me, it was all I could do to get on. Well, I used to be on Twitter. Then when it became X, I'm like, okay, forget that. And I definitely have not got into TikTok. I get kids who send me TikTok things, and I'm like, sorry, just not doing it. Um,
Yeah,
it's been all I could handle to get on Threads and LinkedIn, and it's just it's too much.
totally. There's
Yeah,
so many. There's so many. LinkedIn. Oh yeah, that's another one. No, I'm not on LinkedIn either. Yeah.
right, right. All right. Well, there's your next task, I guess, or something.
Right. Right. Get
Well,
myself on LinkedIn. Great.
yeah. Well, good. Well, hey, thank you so much. I mean, this has been great. I hope a lot of men take up your offer here to join in. I think, there's a vast void out there with men seeking ways to kind of slow things down and work themselves towards a goal. Um, I think you're even tapping into a little bit of the female side, if you would. I know that's a scary
Mm,
thought to a lot of men. I once worked for a guy who he wrote a book called Women in the Workplace. And he
yeah.
talked in there about how, anytime a woman tries to use male tendencies to get ahead, just like a man would, we call them a bitch. you know
Mm,
but anytime the women used some of their qualities, which often included intuition, they would get put down for it. But we for so long in business we were missing what women could bring to the equation out there. And now we see a lot of women who are CEOs of corporations. We've got one running for president right now. A lot of those traits that women have are very valuable, and men can certainly tap into a lot of that as well. And I think, you're doing a little bit of that, even though that may scare off some guys thinking that way. It's not. It's a matter of using your, I don't want to say yin and yang. We're talking about Eastern stuff, but using that other side. It doesn't always have to be that coldly efficient alpha male kind of attitude all the time.
absolutely. I would use the word receptive and directive energy. Really learning to be user receptive, like staying energy versus always needing to be directive. So that's beautiful. I think that's a key for a lot of men. Yeah. I love that.
I like that. Receptive energy. That's a very good way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, hey, thank you so much. Appreciate your making the time out here all the way out in San Diego. I'm sure you'd rather be out on the beach right now. I'm sure it's really rough out there at the moment. But thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for taking the time. Appreciate chatting with you.
Absolutely. You have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks.